Thank you, Ayaz. That was a very nice introduction. You took all of my material. So I am very pleased to accept this award for Best Podcast of 2017. I'm glad you all listen. And the reason I say that is I really haven't done much in the way of justice action, because as was notably mentioned, I was fired from my... I don't know how many people get get applause for being fired, so I appreciate that. My parents would have appreciated that. So it is true that I used to have power. Subpoena power in particular. So I will, because I'm among friends, a small group of close friends, I will admit to you that it is a little bit weird and deeply unsatisfying to stand up here before you tonight without the ability to arrest any of you. It's not something that I'm used to. I'm very embarrassed that I don't have that ability. It is true, as Ayaz said, there's a lot of diversity in my family. And so one of the things I want to congratulate AALDEF on is being a participant in this country for standing up for the legal rights of a lot of folks, but also to celebrate diversity in America, which I think is one of the great strengths of America. And it is true that I have 3 children. I have 2 boys and a girl. They're all now teenagers. And there's a wide range of religious backgrounds in my family. And the way I tell the story is, my children have 1 Hindu grandparent, 1 Muslim grandparent, 1 Jewish grandparent, and 1 Sikh grandparent, which means, I think, if I'm doing the math correctly, makes them Episcopalian. And the other weird thing is that my 2 boys and my daughter, who could not be here, by the way, because tomorrow's a school day, though I will be touching the back of the television when I get home. They're all named Ethan. So I have a lot in common. So let me congratulate Chan on both his public service, his private service, his child naming abilities of a radical nature, and also Linda Greenhouse, who I had the privilege to sit next to this evening, who I had been reading and following for long before I went to law school. If I wanted to learn about how the law worked and how the courts worked, it was because of what I read in the New York Times by Linda Greenhouse. So congratulations to both of you. I'm going to be brief. There's a lot going on in the country that is worrisome. I have a story that I think is special because it's my story, but it's common in this country that people decided to leave the place of their birth where things were very comfortable and travel across an ocean by boat or by plane or in some other even more difficult way because they wanted a better life in another country. My father, of course, came to this country because he thought that my brother and I, he was not yet born, but was an apple in the eye of my mom and dad, thought that we would become terrific doctors in America. We didn't get to do that. But it took a lot to leave where they were from to come here. And the other thing about their departing India 45, 48 years ago to come here was they so appreciated what they got when they came here, appreciated the mobility, appreciated how welcome they were, and they were not always welcome, and there is discrimination and bigotry and difficulty. But by and large, my dad was able to develop a successful pediatric practice in Asbury Park, New Jersey, which is mostly known for the Stone Pony and Bruce Springsteen. It's not known for Indian pediatricians till now. And they just wanted a better life, and they thought that an important part of being an immigrant is to participate in life, culture, politics, society of their adopted country. And so the amazing thing about AALDEF and the amazing thing about America is it doesn't matter where you're from. You don't have to be, as Ayaz said, you don't have to be from Norway. You are a participant in this country. I was born somewhere else. People think Barack Obama was born somewhere else. But I got to be the son of a father who was born in the part of what was then India before partition, one of 13 kids who was the first person in his family to go to college, who just wished something for his family, left, came here, and got to thrive and succeed even though we were from somewhere else. And what I worry about, separate and apart from the legal issues, the travel ban, you know, I was still the U.S. attorney when the travel ban was announced 8 days into the tenure of Donald Trump. And for those of you who are lawyers, and particularly for people who are prosecutors who understand the competitive nature of the Southern District of New York, where I was the U.S. attorney, and the Eastern District of New York, where we had, you know, turf battles and fights about venue and where cases should be brought, after the travel ban was issued, and there was a whole scene given the lack of certainty about what the status was of certain people who were coming back into the United States. It was the only time I had ever said in my life, and I never thought I would say this, that I'm really happy that the airports are in the Eastern District of New York. There's a lot that's happening not just legally, and that's important, and AALDEF is a supporter of a lot of causes, as are other organizations, and that's incredibly important. I also think there's a change in the rhetoric in this country, and it's anecdotal, but when my dad calls me and tells me that people are saying things that he hasn't heard them say, and friends are telling him that anecdotally, again, they're hearing people say things about how, you know, people who look a little different from a standard issue white American should go back to where they came from, and you worry that there's an unleashing of, you know, a kind of bigotry that maybe has been below the surface in some places but is now coming to the fore, that's worrisome. And so what I hope, even though I'm now powerless in the law enforcement area, you know, I still have my voice, I still have my law degree. From time to time I get a podium. I hope that everyone in this room, whether you have time to use your law degree, or whether or not you have the ability to support financially an organization like AALDEF, you will use your voice. And not just, you know, on television or in places where lots of people can hear you, but when you're talking to your friends, when you're talking to neighbors, when you're visiting people in other parts of the country, explain to them that what makes America great is its diversity. And in particular, as a sort of corollary to that, what makes America great is the ability of anyone from anywhere to be upwardly mobile. You can be an uneducated person from Africa or from India or even from Norway and come to the United States and rise higher than your parents could ever have imagined. It's the most mobile and should be the most mobile society in the world. And that's why when people start saying you have to look a certain way or be from a certain part of the world to be accepted in this country, And when they say, chain migration, whatever that means, is bad, that to me is un-American. That to me does not appreciate and celebrate and honor the tradition, legacy, and promise, and also premise of what America is. So just in closing, I would say to the various lawyers in the room, there has been no more important time to be a lawyer, I think, in this country. Not just a lawyer who can argue things in court and who can write motions and briefs, but also a lawyer who understands what the rule of law means and can explain it and talk about it and celebrate it and persuade other people about the importance of it and the centrality of it to what it means to be American, whether you're from a Western country, or you're from Asia, or you're from Africa, or anywhere else. And public service has never been more important. I cared about public service so much. I spent 17 and a half years in public service that when Donald Trump got elected, who, as people now may appreciate, is not necessarily my cup of tea, and he asked me and had me come and visit him at Trump Tower on November 30th of 2016. And I went up to the 26th floor, and the president-elect was running late, and I knew I was there for him to ask me to stay on for another term, which is very unusual. There had not yet been named a Secretary of Defense or a Secretary of State, so it was an extraordinary moment. And I had to make some time with Jared Kushner and Steve Bannon, who was wearing only one shirt at the time, and wait for the president-elect to come in. And he asked me to stay, and I said yes. And the reason I said yes is I believe in the rule of law. I believe in public service. I believe that you can make a difference if you're left alone to do your job. And I stayed even though I had, personal differences of opinion with this particular politician who had been elected president of the United States. And I would have continued to do my job, perhaps for a longer period, until I got fired. And so when people ask me the question, what do you say to young people who care about public service? Should you go into government or not? My answer is yes. The thing I said, I got fired on a Saturday, I spoke to the office, said farewell on a Monday. They let me back in the building. It was very nice of them. And I said, if you're thinking about leaving, don't leave. The vast majority of good stuff that's done in the Justice Department and in all sorts of public service institutions in government and elsewhere is done in an apolitical, non-political way. And if you are a good person and you care about justice and the rule of law, then the best place for you to be is to be in a position where you can do something about it in the government. So even though I had to go, I hope more and more of you go back in, because we'll be a better country because of it. And if good people don't serve, then the whole country suffers. Congratulations to AALDEF and to my fellow honorees. Thanks very much.